And so I'd like to fall into prayer right now, once again, and asking for that open channel and that open heaven, if you will, that we may commune in this canoe in a way that is truly a love ethic. And so, Spirit, as you dance your way through, dance into people's hearts and dance into our minds in a way that stirs up any dust or residue, that kicks off things that no longer need to be with us, that we may come into greater rhythm and flow. And so it is. So it is. I've done a lot of talks over the years around grief. And as I said at the beginning of our service tonight, that usually looked like what can happen when there's unprocessed grief. And what happens when people don't know how to grieve. That's it. This is a society and a culture. We don't really know how to do that. Sure, we have the books. There are books on death and dying and grief, where it's not solely restricted to a physical death, but maybe it's the loss of a friendship or a relationship or a job or a move or something of that nature. And we read and we read and we learn about the stages of grief as outlined by, say, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And yet there's still something that seems unreachable, that just seems beyond our grasp when it comes to this whole thing called grief. And grief matters. It matters. And the name of the talk tonight is actually Grief Matters, why our lives depend on it. And so as I've done these talks about unprocessed grief, what I have often pointed to is disconnection. And when we have not grieved well, because through sometimes no fault of our own, we simply don't know how, we disconnect from ourselves, from maybe a Godhead, if we believe in that kind of thing, and certainly from other people. And what ends up happening is isolation, alienation, aloneness. And I don't mean all oneness and unity, and no, I mean aloneness. And where I typically have gone after that thought, after that, is how then what can come in through, whether it's a back door or a front door or a window, is violence. And it seems kind of like, whoa, that was a big leap, but it's not. It's not, because if we are disconnected in those different ways, naming them once again from ourselves or from spirit, source, God, what have you, and from other people, then very quickly it's off the rails. It's a runaway train, and it becomes that much easier to other, remembering that othering is when we see a group of people outside of ourselves as separate from ourselves. It becomes that much easier to other people that don't look like us, people that don't love like us, people that don't fill in the blank like us, whoever that is, maybe for you and your identities and your social location. That is obvious. That's the typical grief talk that I have done. And hopefully, prayerfully, getting folks to see the ways of the connecting of the dots. I'll say it like that, connecting those dots. That's not the talk tonight, because Spirit had something else in mind when I began to write some things out. And I was going to talk about the divine feminine because it's, woo, something almost fell. That could have been very bad. Spirit's moving. Spirit's moving. I was going to bring in the divine feminine, and we can do that another time, because what became very, very clear was And pray that I get this right now. This is where I need the prayer, folks. That we are grieving. We are grieving something that we often don't even know we're grieving. And what that thing is a way of being. Now feel this with me now. Feel this with me, please. A long time ago, I did a sermon during the Hope Cycle series. And there was, when we got to the 6th stage, I believe. And I talked about the knowing. I think Melanie's here tonight. And I remember Melanie seemed to really resonate with that. And I said, you remember when you were little and there were things that you just knew? There was this sense of knowing. And you didn't know how you knew. And maybe it didn't even matter what it was that you did know. But there was something beyond thoughts and words. That was a knowing. I want to call that back right now. When I bring this up about we are grieving something that we don't even know we are grieving. And that is a way of being. And I'll stay there before I go into saying a way of living, because that's there too, but a way of being. A way of being that is love. A way of being in your life, in this world, that is love, love, love. Shall we say it again? Love. And in a moment, I'm not sure exactly when, but Manny, you'll have the definition of love as we go by it here at the Revolution. Let me massage this a bit more. This way of being, this is the life that we know exists. It's the life that is kindness to one another, that there is deep respect and deep regard for another person's humanity. It's where we see people and we treat people from this place of being, this place of love, in this rhythm and this flow. Amen to this, please. Amen, amin, ashe, and aho to this. That in all of our relations, this way of being is dripping with a kindness, with a compassion, with a respect. I believe, my friends, we are grieving that we are not living in that at all times, because we know that we must, we know that we should be. And I don't like usually saying should, but we know that this is where we must reside. And damn it, why is it so hard? And so this place of grief that is almost unconscious and conscious all at the same time, I believe that the way that we can begin to heal, that we are not living from this way of love, is by first saying, oh my gosh, yes, I get it. I see it. I feel it. I remember it. I remember as a child looking around going, this is how the world is supposed to be. There is not supposed to be war. There is supposed to be peace. There is not supposed to be despair. There is supposed to be hope. There is not supposed to be hatred and violence and the degradation of people's humanity or their souls or their spirits. There is supposed to be the exalting of everyone's imago Dei, period. And that we are not all the time moving in that canoe together in that rhythm and that flow. Oh my goodness, I believe this is a deep grief, my friends. I believe this is a deep grief. And we get used to living it. We get used to living in a way of being that does not exalt truth, justice, compassion, and a love that knows no bounds. And we must not get used to it. And you know what it does? It exhausts us, doesn't it? How many of you are freaking tired? You're exhausted. That is some unprocessed grief. See, now, all of you here, I'm going to say this, not speaking for you. I know I don't know some of you personally, but the fact that you're here, you are all change makers. You are all peacemakers. You are all change agents. You are all visionaries. You are all dreamers. You all see like the crow. You see in a diagonal different fashion. You see exactly how we are supposed to be in this world, the way of being, the way of love. You know it, don't you? You know it, you see it. And some of you're working for it. You're creating, I should say. You're creating for it all the time. However, this does take a toll, even on those of us. And that I don't say us like we're better than, I don't mean it like that. It takes a toll when we live in a world that is not flowing and growing in this way of being, in this way of exalting truth, exalting kindness, exalting compassion, and this unbelievable agape love. It takes a toll. And bless us, we keep going. So I believe that one of our tickets out, so to speak, is by simply acknowledging this grief. Because often I was going to do, this is what I'm going to do tonight. I was going to have you come off mute and say, what are some of the things you grieved? And I think we would have had some of the same go-tos that a lot of us do. Like I could have said something about a physical loss, physical death, or this or that. But it hit me that I really, really believe that this way of being that we are not connected to, that we don't experience all the time, that we might have like glimpses of, sure. It weighs heavy. It weighs heavy on us. And there's ways that this society and this culture that is white supremacist, that is heteronormative, that is capitalistic, that is, did I say patriarchal? I've got to make sure I say patriarchal, especially on Mother's Day. It gaslights. It gaslights us. And that is a very important thing to say right now. So I hope you're seeing the nuances here. I'm not saying that we don't touch places of heaven, places of joy, where we are in the rhythm and the flow. I mean, I would like to say we're in one of those right now. Amen. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, you know what? Life can be really hard. It can be really hard when we are faced with this kind of gaslighting. And so let us not too quickly overturn a place within us that may not be getting heard, that may not be getting seen, that may not be getting some nurturement. The way of being. The way of being, that is love. There is nothing at role. We don't say there is one way for anything here, especially any kind of religious thing or spirituality or identities. But here tonight, there is one way that we are claiming, and that is love. That is love. Manny, if you would pull up that. That was quick. And if someone would like to read this kind of lengthy definition, I would appreciate it. If someone would come off mute and read it.
I can read it.
I will.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay, thanks. Love, a way of being and living, including breath, force, power, and presence through the body, words spoken and unspoken, energy felt and directed, and practices exalting truth, compassion, and justice.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. Can we have one more reading of it, please? And if you'd like to close your eyes, whoever is not reading it. So.
I can read it this time.
Go ahead.
Love, a way of being and living, including breath, force, power, and presence through the body, words spoken and unspoken, energy felt and directed, and practices exalting truth, compassion, and justice.
Thank you, David. Okay, thank you, Manny, for that. So let's begin to make our ascension, if you will, centering that definition of love and recognizing that this life is forever many stages of evolution. And that there's no graduation point. There's no arrival. And so with that, again, asking the Spirit to continue to move in this space tonight. And may we all begin to remember this way of being that sometimes we don't always believe in anymore. Maybe we think it's too far-fetched to live and coexist in harmony, to create a world where people are not only safe, especially people that are in afflicted or marginalized communities are not only safe, they're thriving, where all needs are truly being met. And more than that, where there is a rhythm and a flow, this divine stepping, where there is a beauty and a grace and a joy and a kindness and a welcoming, where we look at each other and go, I know you. I know you. I see you and I get you in the ways that I am able to, and I am overjoyed to meet you on this path. May we begin to move from that place of I into the we, of we are here, we are creating, we are healing, and we are transforming. Yes. It is the noticing of this pocket of grief that is no longer hiding now. This pocket of grief called the way of being. The way of being, the way of living, that is love. That the moment we remember it, it is as though an aha moment almost, I want to say, smacks us between the eyes. And we believe, as we did when we were quite young, with all the divine wisdom of today. In these coming days, as we are still going to be in the canoe together, if you forget, remember, we have this canoe that we can come back to at any moment. Let this be a reminder to remember the way of being that is calling us. Let us not forget. Let us remember this way of love.